Hi everybody, this is Hero back with another Dragonflight video. And in this video, I'd like to take a look at Restoration Shaman. So I'm going to do a couple things. First of all, I'm just going to talk very briefly overall about the tree, which I think is excellent. And then I'm going to outline for you a chain heal focus build for raiding. So first thing, notes about what I like about the class tree. Number one, if you look across the board, both class and spec tree, you have many branching options. I think this is far, far, far superior to almost any other class tree I've seen so far. The developer clearly understands that people want to be able to make lots of different choices and not be shoehorned into a build based on a bad passive. So they did a great job. Secondly, we have returning an exceptional amount of utility in the class tree kit, which Resto Shaman has many options to pursue, but can dump things that they don't regularly use, whether it's in a raid setting, a kick that they don't need to be part of, or a dispel, a curse dispel they don't need, or hex, frost shock, earth ellie. Lots of these pieces can be dumped in favor of other throughput options or other utility. That's a good choice. That feels like it can scale past this expansion. We have the return of nature swiftness. We have the return of utility like poison cleansing totem and stone skin totem for your groups. You have some powerful, powerful effects like call of the elements to give you back things like earth and wall totem, or to give you back, if you wanted it, Cloudburst Totem. Really, really strong effects, and I think that's useful that you can index into that if you like. You also get AG baseline and a new function for our Earth shields or just our elemental shields in general. This one maybe is a little more PvP oriented, but I'll talk about why I think it's still beneficial in a raid setting. Mana Spring Totem seems undertuned from the numbers, but this should also, relatively speaking, be pretty good if you stick a shaman in the healer group to help them along. All in all, guys, very impressed with the tree. Probably my major takeaways are things like the return of Gust, which I think is excellent, and the return, more importantly, of Totemic Projection, which is my favorite returning ability. I know that sounds weird, but I think there's many, many times when the planning of the shaman is interrupted by some kind of mechanic, and the major cooldown that you just dropped, whether it was Spirit Link or an Earthen Wall Totem especially, imagine both PvP and in raid. Everyone has to shift 10 yards to the left. They're suddenly outside of Earthen Wall. Something like Totemic Projection can make that go very, very long way. Okay, so I think this alone, Earthen Wall Totem and Spirit Link Totem being able to be moved, also something like Windrush Totem, being able to be moved, are gigantic boons for the spec, and it gives Shaman even more utility in a raid setting. There's also a really good theme here of general throughput on the spec side being tagged higher up in the tree so that it doesn't interrupt really fundamental capstone choices. What do I mean? Acid Rain or Call of Thunder appears here, and then Stormkeeper is over here. These are off the path, but they're accessible early on. They don't interrupt your movement through the tree. Same thing with Lava Surge. Most people will be taking Healing Wave and Water Shield to get access to their main abilities. Lava Surge is pretty close to that, but you can index out of it if you preferred only to grab these two, and it's not a big deal. Likewise, Echo the Elements isn't too far down the tree to be inaccessible. Going to be really strong, guys. If you want to do damage as a Resto Shaman, these options are excellent ones, especially in single target. You get the improved Lightning Bolt together with Stormkeeper every 1 minute, and then you have your regular idea of passive damage because you're going to be pressing Flame Shock, you're going to be getting Lava Surge charges in a raid setting just passively as you do your normal healing stuff because you're waiting for those ticks to go off. Firing off those lava bursts is going to be excellent. So lots to be thankful for if you're a shaman looking at these trees. Now, I'm also excited about a few of the minor changes that seem to me to be making, maybe punching above their weight as far as the transformation of shaman next expansion. First of all, Tidal Waves. Second, Unleash Life, both getting changed. Tidal Waves now affecting Chain Heal. So Tidal Waves traditionally used to be produced by Chain Heal or by Riptide, and it made this awkward gameplay of if you have a Tidal Wave, you prefer to use it on Healing Wave, and therefore not cast a Chain Heal while you have the buff. Here, we can press Riptide and we can press Chain Heal afterwards and know that we are going to get value out of those tidal waves. And 20% haste on Chain Heal is excellent, guys. This spell is a 2.5 second baseline cast. And traditionally, you know, indexing for haste has not been a thing for Shaman because crit is so valuable for things like Resurgence, maybe in a minor way, but also just because crit is excellent for our abilities. And Mastery is sort of not the best ability, so crit and verse tended to be strong due to how much haste returns we get through tidal waves on our regular healing wave. So adding Chain Heal to this list is insane. If we can sustain the mana, I haven't even talked about ERT yet, but if we can sustain the mana in a raid setting, Chain Heal will make Restoration Shamans completely bonkers. And I'll show you a few more pieces. Unleash Life, though, getting changed. It's going to modify specific spells in a variety of ways. You got general single target throughput, so Riptide, Healing Wave, Healing Surge. You have some utility on Chain Heal, so it's getting a bonus for your AoE. It's adding a target, that's pretty significant. Downpour and Healing Rain moving from 4 targets or 6 targets to 8 targets, and Downpour moving from 6 targets also to 8 targets is excellent throughput from Unleash Life on a low CD as an instant cast, and it itself is 190% spell power, so it's not a waste of a button. Pretty solid. The Wellspring Overhealing, we'll have to see how that plays out. It does take up Deeply Rooted if you didn't want it, so not the best. But really cool changes, guys. So with that, let me walk through what I think of as a fascinating AoE-focused raid healing approach. Notice I have not taken Healing Wave. That's because we are leaning into both Healing Rain and Chain Heal as our two main pieces. Look at the kinds of modifications we can make to Chain Heal. Targets you heal with Healing Wave, Healing Surge, Chain Heal, or Riptide's initial heal gain 10% increased health. We've seen this before. Fine passive for abilities we're going to be pressing all the time. Riptide now increasing the speed of our Chain Heals. Amazing. Nature's Swiftness, giving us access every minute to an instant cast Chain Heal. Awesome. Ancestral Reach, making it bounce another time and a little bit of an amp. Yes. High Tide, we've seen this before. Amazing. Not only because you get the 10%, but you get 2 fully buffed Chain Heals. Remember, Chain Heal is reducing 30% per targeted hits. If we hit 5 targets and then 6 targets with an Unleashed Life, High Tide is going to make the value of Chain Heal go through the roof. We also could potentially use Nature's Focus if we needed to hit tanks more often, though I'm not sure if this is intended to scale the entire effect, since Chain Heal reads that the initial jump is what determines how it scales down for over targets, but nevertheless, we'll see how this works out. All of this stuff, guys, makes Chain Heal, in my view, something pretty strong. So, how do we complement that? Well, we're also going to grab some just general throughput stuff that's really powerful. Riptide's on a 6-second recharge. We could make use of Primordial Wave into Primal Tidal Core and do that gameplay with Healing Wave, but since we've skipped Healing Wave altogether, get out of here. We're just going to be casting Healing Rains, Totems, and Chain Heals, and then we'll fill with what? Flame Shock. Guys, this has to be changed or we are going to be completely busted as a class. Look at this. Think about the cadence of using Chain Heal and think about this ability. Casting Flame Shock. Flame Shock's CD, I believe, is still 4 seconds. Maybe it's going to be longer for Resto Shaman, but I believe it's still set at 4 seconds. Casting Flame Shock reduces the mana cost of your next heal. Chain Heal is the most expensive spell that we have, and increases its healing effectiveness by 30%. Guys, buffing a Chain Heal by 30% is obscene. Heck, buffing a Healing Rain by 30% is obscene. But since we're indexing into so much Chain Heal, Unleash, or like Flame Shock, Unleash, Chain Heal crazy, crazy, crazy. So focused insight for me, guys, needs to be changed. It needs to be like 10%. Like casting Flame Shock reduces the mana cost by 5 or 10% and increases its healing effectiveness by 5 or 10%. To have it at 30% is going to be completely busted. Next, we have general throughput things that are getting a lot more interesting because of Totemic Projection and Call the Elements. I referenced before Earth and Wall Totem. I mean, you could, in certain kinds of fights, make the same case for APT, which raises people from the dead. But Earth and Wall typically has been a problem because there's no way to move it. Healing Rain's a low CD, 10 seconds, so you can just put another one down. This is a 1-minute CD. Getting it back, and I think probably Creation Core is the way to go so that you can make use of either Cloudburst or Earth and Wall both at the same time and get CDs, but you could also just put this as a 2-minute CD, which complements this quite nicely. But either way, guys, Earth and Wall Totem is an exceptional value. And it's passive, it's basically a shield because the totem itself is absorbing the damage, and now you can move it wherever you need to. Same thing for Link, which is going to be excellent. Tide is fine as a 3-minute cooldown. It doesn't really do much. You just press it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the significance in my mind of pressing so many totems, but let me just finish off with the pieces of the tree. We need to take Earth and Harmony here to get to Ascendance, and I've opted to suggest that we take Elemental Orbit in this list. There's a few builds here on the class side that I can see, including Flurry, which I'll mention in a minute. But the idea here is that you can have Earth Shield on yourself and somebody else, and that's valuable in a raid setting because you receiving 20% more healing from your own stuff is pretty decent when you hit Ascendance or go into Ascendance through Deeply Rooted or Riptide yourself or a Chain Heal bounce hits you. All of these passive effects are going to make you far more sturdy over the course of an encounter. So I think it's pretty valuable to have that extra point here to give yourself 20% healing. But we need to take Earth and Harmony, which makes the healing side, usually, this is for the tanks. So currently it's 36.5% spell power every tick that goes off on a tank. This pushes it up to like 70% spell power. And I don't know if there's down here in the shield, Surging Shields increases it a little bit more. So maybe it's something like 80% spell power tick. That's okay on a tank, having an 80% spell power tick and getting a tiny bit more utility. If you need to healing surge, the tank is fine. But this is probably one of the weaker ones. Not that bad, though. And Undercurrent is probably the other somewhat weak talent here if we're thinking about raid stuff. But it leads us to Deeply Rooted Elements. So every 6 seconds, we have a chance to go into Ascendance. What we're really looking here for is the proc. Because you can see here for the next, 6 seconds or 7 seconds, you get the opportunity to spread your healing. Awesome. But the proc is 876% of spell power spread across all players. So just having your Riptide have the potential to say, it says essentially, heal them for 170% spell power and an additional 132 over 18 seconds. Also has a 7% chance to do 876% spell power spread evenly across all friendly targets. That's a giant button suddenly. Riptide, right? Not only is it making our chain heals faster, insane, but it's also now tying it to an 876% proc that can go off. Well, it's not going to happen. It's only 7%. The point is it's passive, guys. It's just passive. You get this for free, and both sides of it are great. The burst healing is awesome from the proc, but also the next 2 spells you cast. What if you had a chain heal? What if you had High Tide go off while you got the proc? So you press Riptide, and then you press and maybe a Nature Swiftness chain heal. That's going to do a boatload of healing because you're suddenly spreading it around. You get the idea. Ascendance has always been quite good for Resto Shaman. And then we can just have Ascendance naturally as well. So just as a nice CD that we want to use, and it lasts for the full duration, 15 seconds, giant throughput, good stuff. I think ERT has some serious consideration here, and we would probably take it out of Nature's Focus and put it in ERT depending on how this is scaled. People are suggesting that ERT is maybe not that good, but I think this is one of the sleeper talents in the tree. The reason I think that is mana is one of those really weird things in raids. Either it's super significant and everyone is planning very carefully all of their GCD usage because it's a rot fight or it's way too oppressive and everyone's ooming. Or you get to the end of the boss and you got like 25% or 30% of your mana pool. Ever Rising Tide offers you, the player, the opportunity to leverage mana, which is something that not a lot of healing classes have opportunity to do anymore. You can't, turn the tap on your mana and drain it faster to do more throughput. So giving a class this ability to turn that tap on when they want to is a really good choice. And the options are decent too. 10% haste works really nicely with Chain Heal, again, alongside Tidal Waves. 10% healing done is a pretty significant buff. Is the mana regeneration going to matter? I don't know. There's probably other versions of this where we take Water Shield, we have Mana Tide, and Mana Spring is reasonable or broken. In these cases, it would make ERT even better. But what if just naked with only like a Mana Tide to use and some basic Resurgence going off? You get awesome throughput. What if you have a Boomkin? And you can get, or any, I'm not sure if Feral or Guardian get Innervates, but what if you have an Innervate available? Ever Rising Tide becomes insane. Don't you guys remember, what was that, Ashara raid, right? ERT was insane in BFA for a couple of classes, like Disc Priest, for example. And I think we have opportunity here to make use of it. So I'm going to be definitely testing this out. It's not for everybody, but I think you can take this point and shift it over here. Earth Living Weapon. If this gets scaled better, then I can see us taking the 3 points out of Deeply Rooted and Undercurrent and tossing it into Earth Living and Earth Warden. 4% isn't great, and 30% of 4% is also not very good, so I don't think this warrants pressing this. But Earth Living Weapon, if it's scaled better, if this said something like 10% of spell power over 12 seconds, then Chain Heal is one of the best ways to proc this. Remember, we're hitting 4 targets all the time with Chain Heal, up to 6 if we Unleash Life, and, I should say we get 5 with Ancestral Reach. So it's guaranteed to hit 5, plus a 6th potentially with every Unleash Life. That is a good chance to put Earth Living Weapon on almost everybody in the raid over the course of 2 or 3 casts. So if the scaling on this changes, it could be really strong for this kind of a build. I think if you're trying to do Riptides and Healing Wave, the only time you would really see Earth Living Weapon is you get bursts of Primordial Wave in a raid. So you've got 6 or 7 Riptides out because you're using Primal Tidal Core, and then you hit a Healing Wave, and maybe you've got the reset. You hit Healing Wave, boom, Earth Living goes on. You hit your reset Prime, you hit another Healing Wave, and you've got a lot of them out then. Great, that's fine. But Chain Heal is going to do this passively for you. 5 targets every single cast, tons of haste on Tidal Waves, and Nature's Swiftness. It's going to be a great time for Chain Heal. So that's the basic piece that I'd like you guys to look at for raiding. There's other things here that I think are interesting. Ancestral Awakening making a return. Again, with High Tide, it makes your chain heals, it makes your healing surges somewhat valuable here because as a triage ability, you're still going to get some value out of Ancestral Awakening, and Surge is going to crit for a lot. Your Riptides probably in this version aren't going to be that great. This is definitely goes nicely with Prime Wave if you want something that really synergizes with it, but it's not a bad passive leading into High Tide. Again, they've set it up pretty nicely. The final thing I want to mention, I forgot to say AG as well, guys. Look, they just give you a 2-minute CD that says copy your stuff. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy in raid, guys. It's going to be completely bonkers, the kind of throughput that you can push out. If you have ERT into an AG, NS, Ascendance, Ripped, Unleashed, High-Tided Chain Heal, that's like an insane amount of copied stuff, right? Wow. Pretty exciting. But what I want to finish with is this idea of Maelstrom Weapon. So I think that Resto Shaman has the potential to be in melee. Now, for obvious reasons, it's marked as a ranged healer, so any mechanic that forces you to separate groups into ranged and melee, this is not going to apply. But just as a tiny bonus, I think people need to think about Maelstrom Weapon as a part of their throughput kit, and maybe even Flurry, given the fact that we have focused insight. If you're going to be using lava surges, this is especially true. Because we want to press Flame Shock all the time now for the 30% heal. Flame Shock is essentially the same thing as Unleash Life, just slightly better on the healing index and slightly worse on the utility side, but these are basically the same thing. We're pressing Flame Shock all the time anyways to get us bonuses, but what Maelstrom Weapon says to you is, if you are pressing back-to-back instant cast abilities so that you get your GCD, your character, if it's set to auto-attack whatever is in front of it, will swing your weapon. So if you press Healing Stream Totem, Riptide, Cloudburst, your character will have swung one time at whatever boss was in front of it. Maybe you press Start Attack on your Flame Shock, so you're running into the boss, you press Flame Shock, you press Healing Stream Totem, your guy auto-attacks, you queue up a Chain Heal. After you finish the Chain Heal, you're pressing another Healing Stream, or you're pressing Cloudburst Totem, or you press Unleash Life, or you press NS Chain Heal, which is going to make it instant cast. All of these things are going to cause your character, if they're set to auto-attack, to attack. That gives you the opportunity to gain Maelstrom Weapon, which in my view, for something like a Chain Heal build, is quite strong. Reducing the cast time of your Chain Heal, which is, again, 2.5 seconds, means, and this is, again, something that's happening passively. You're not really worried about it. Your guy's just auto-attacking no matter what. You don't play around it. You're just there. But all of the instant cast pieces to the Resto Shaman kit mean that you're going to have opportunity to auto-attack in the background. That means that you'll have 1 or 2 stacks, potentially, when you go to cast Chain Heal. That's going to increase the speed at which you cast by 20% or 40%. Or if you're moving along with the boss and you're doing instant cast stuff for an extended period, the next Chain Heal is going to be instant cast. Currently, Maelstrom Weapon is coded to be Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, I believe Elemental Blast if we had access to it, and perhaps a few more. I'm not sure what the intention for the coding is for this. I don't think things like Riptide are going to consume it, for example. Healing Wave, I believe, is also, and Healing Surge are also on the list of ideas. But this, guys, to me, is a sleeper talent. Just like ERT, I don't think people are really quite considering what the idea offers you is extra haste on your Chain Heals for free. Just passively by being in melee, you'll get this because you'll be dropping so many bloody totems. Healing Stream Totem, Earth and Wall Totem, and then you get another one, Call of the Elements. You press Cloudburst, then you press Earth and Wall again, then you press Cloudburst. We could chain together 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 instant cast buttons before we ever cast anything. So this is going to stack up if you want to play it that way. Again, just another note, something to test out and to look into. I'm excited about Resto Shaman. I think it provides shamans with a good pathway forward for the next couple of expansions. If this is what it was for 2 or 3 expansions, I can see many builds I'd like to test out and a lot of good payoffs or things to play with, like Ever Rising Tide, where there's really meaty choices. I think it's excellent. Let's see how it plays. We'll catch you again next time, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. See ya.